article from last week and set it on the table. Some pony from this town has submitted untrue rumors that I am portraying myself as some kind of vigilante hero, Trixie angrily explained. Yes, I am very much aware of the irony here, but I'll not leave until I find and confront whoever is behind this blatant act of identity theft. The bartender sighed and ran a hoof through his graying-brown mane. He turned to a door on the wall beside the counter and pushed it open a few inches. "Ellie, you got a visitor." A moment later the door fully opened, and out stepped a young cream-coat Pegasus, bearing leather goggles set above her bright mint-green eyes. She was wearing a dirty gray coat and smelled distinctly of motor oil. The young pony brushed her long, light-green mane away from her face, and only then realized who the unicorn was that she stood before. With a squeak of joy, the Pegasus held out her forehooves to hug Trixie. "Ah, you're here! You actually put on your best bib and tucker to answer my plea for help!" Trixie slapped Ellie's horns away and grabbed the Pegasus by the collar with her magical pony kinesis power. "I answer to no one!" Trixie scolded. "How dare you infringe upon the name of the great and powerful Trixie! I don't know what ideas you have in that little hayseed brain of yours, but you will cease and desist immediately." "No frets," squeaked the Pegasus gleefully. "You're here now to help us." "Yes, I am here," Trixie responded. "I am here to—" "Wait, what? What do you mean, help you?" Their conversation was interrupted as the front door swung wide open and slammed against the door frame. 3 tall female creatures stepped into the saloon and looked around intently until their eyes made contact with Trixie's. The miners all stood up and slowly backed away from the bipedal walking creatures. The 3 figures had sharp claws and equally sharp teeth that contrasted with their fluffy ears and soft fur coats. Trixie knew unmistakably what they were. Diamond dogs. The lead female was about the same height as the average stallion, with an eggshell coat. Her ears and tail ended in a puffy tuft of fur. The other 2 were about a head taller and shorter than the lead dog, with blue Great Dane and brown Pomeranian features respectively. The lead dog elbowed the other 2 and pointed at Trixie. The blue unicorn felt a lump in her throat as the diamond dog sauntered up to her. She glanced at the bartender for help, but the stallion only shook his head and moved away like everyone else. The only one not moving away was Ellie. The Pegasus had a brave but unsteady expression, trying to keep calm in face of the dogs. "Word on the street is that there's a big shot pony in town," the lead dog sneered. "I heard she's come out here to bust our chickens." "Chops, Roxy," the smallest dog corrected. "It's bust our chops." Roxy swatted the shorter dog on the nose. "You ain't my schoolmarm, Bella," snapped the angry dog. Roxy adjusted her violet vest before she continued. "You aren't from around these parts, unicorn, so I wager you must be the great and powerful Trixie, aren't you?" "I am," Trixie said with hesitation, "but I'm not here to fight anyone." Now she's sounding like Rarity. What am I doing? "Well, that ain't what the paper said," Roxy countered. "Plain as day, it read that you were going to unleash your magic voodoo and run us out of town. So let's see this power now, "Come on, Trixie, show them," Ellie whispered to the blue unicorn. Trixie threw a dirty glance at Ellie. "There is a miscommunication here," Trixie explained to the diamond dogs. "I came to this town with the business of rectifying the pony who wrote the article. Nothing more. I shall finish my business here, and then I will depart this backwater little town, so you may carry on with your occupational trade of choice." Roxy forcefully grabbed Trixie by the shoulders. "I don't like strangers," Roxy warned. "I especially don't like strangers who make snide comments about my status with fake, fancy words." Fuck. "Trade isn't really a fancy word. Trade isn't really a fancy word," Trixie defended. "Shut up!" Roxy shouted. "Shut up!" Roxy shouted. "I reckon I ought to rearrange your pretty little face. Of course, perhaps my fist could be persuaded otherwise. Say, 50 bits to keep your nose in its current shape." Trixie gulped hard. I don't have any money. Then prepare to bleed. That sounded so dorky. Trixie watched Roxy's fist rear back. The blue unicorn quickly seized her bag with ponykinesis and threw it at Roxy's legs. The luggage connected with the diamond dog and flipped Roxy over onto her face with a hard thud. Roxy's grip released. Trixie hooked a hoof around Ellie and yanked the Pegasus toward the door. "Let's go, troublemaker!" "Wait, there's still 2 more!" Ellie stated obviously. That sounded like Spike. "Wait, there's still 2 more!" Ellie stated obviously. I can't fucking do her voice. The 2 ducked under the advances of the remaining 2 diamond dogs and galloped straight for the exit. Trixie heard Roxy angrily bark orders to give chase over the shouts of the miners to keep on running. Yeah, like there was another option here? In seconds, the 2 ponies burst through the doors of the saloon and onto the dusty street. A wagon swerved to avoid hitting the 2, and the stallion who pulled that cart hurled a few choice words to move out of the way. Trixie intended to keep moving and galloped over to the far end of the street with Ellie in tow. The blue unicorn seized the side handle of a passing black stagecoach and pulled Ellie up onto the moving vehicle. Trixie attempted to open the coach door, but it was locked from within. "Keep out, you rogues!" "Keep out, you rogues!" shouted a middle-aged stallion passenger. Words are hard. Trixie thought quickly. An ability that she had noted was quite effective when danger was at your heels. She decided that elevation would be beneficial and climbed to the roof of the coach in just 3 steps. Ellie was right behind, slipping on the rough riding cart. The 2 girls looked behind them and saw the 3 diamond dogs already in the street. They ran on all 4s to keep up, and Trixie cursed their damned deficiency at it. "How strong are you?" Trixie asked the Pegasus. "What?" responded a nervous Ellie. "Fly, you little hayseed!" Trixie commanded. She yanked off Ellie's collar buttons and pulled the coat off of the Pegasus. The unicorn threw the coat and caution to the wind, held on to Ellie with a tight grip, and together they leaped off the stagecoach. Ellie screamed in horror as they bolted into the air above the passing townsfolk. Trixie saw Ellie instinctively throw open her right wing, then her nothing else. The 2 ponies crashed into an open cart of flour sacks and toppled over the pile onto the dirty, unpaved street. Ellie was curled up in pain while Trixie wobbled to stand up with a body that protested fiercely from being thrown so hard. She was quickly yanked off the ground by the tallest diamond dog. Trixie was held up by her cape collar. The huge dog's fist connected with the blue unicorn's stomach as hammer would against a potato. Trixie let out a curdled coughing fit as all the air escaped violently from her lungs. A second blow wound up, but Roxy intervened before it could connect. "Hold your puppies, Ginger!" Roxy barked at the larger dog. She snatched Trixie away by the foreleg. Bella scrunched her face. "It goes, hold your horses, Roxy. You know, like what you're doing." "What did I say about correcting me?" Roxy scolded. With a growl, Roxy turned her attention to the blue unicorn. "This little pony got personal, and I intend to give her a whooping." "Roxy," said a firm male males. "Roxy," said a firm male voice from behind the group. Onlookers parted and revealed a stallion who wore a steel badge. "I don't know what that pretty lass did to work up your ire, but I can't abide by you curb-stomping her on my street." What the fuck is even happening? The young stallion who stood before them had a reddish-tan coat with a brown mane tucked neatly under a frayed 10-gallon hat. Roxy released Trixie, letting the unicorn crumple to the ground with a labored grunt. The diamond dog turned her attention to the stallion. "Deputy Valiant," Roxy greeted with a cheerful but completely false air about her. "Well, this is a quaint surprise to see you here. How's the sheriff?" "Same as the day we buried him, Roxy," Valiant said flatly. "Now go about your own business. This lass isn't worth the trouble." Roxy sauntered up to the deputy. She leaned into his face and bared all her teeth with a wicked grin. "I reckon she isn't," Roxy said wryly. Her voice just changes all the time. "Perhaps you reckon there's someone here more suited to my caliber?" She stared at the deputy for a few seconds with an unbroken eye contact. Roxy suddenly snapped her teeth and caused Valiant to flinch and recoil back. Roxy roared in laughter as she waved to her two friends. "Come on, gals. We'll settle this little romp some other time." What is going on? Ginger snatched Trixie's hat from the unicorn's head and walked off with it. The hat appeared off-kilter on Ginger due to it being a size too small for the dog's large head. Trixie said nothing. She only narrowed her eyes in tearful anger. Deputy Valiant took in a deep breath as he watched the Diamond Dogs leave town. A few townsfolk who witnessed the scene also went back to their routine to avoid the deputy's gaze. Valiant helped Trixie and Ellie up off the ground. "Thanks for the save," said Ellie, dusting off her face. "Ellie, you ought to know better than to tangle with Diamond Dogs," Valiant scolded. "Why don't you go on home? I'm sure Ma is worried about you." The stallion turned to the unicorn. "Will you be all right, miss?" "I think so," Trixie weakly answered. "Just winded is all." I'm Deputy Valiant," the stallion introduced. "If I were you, miss, I wouldn't cross with Roxy and them Diamond Dogs. They aren't afraid of no pony around these parts, local or stranger." Trixie nodded to the now obvious fact, but then she remembered something important that escaped her earlier due to all the commotion caused by the dogs. "Pony feather... keep going to Rarity. Pony feathers. My bag. My back... There's no way to say that without being Rarity." The deputy raised a hoof. "Don't bother, miss," he began. "Urchin's likely already ran off with it, so there's no sense going back to look." Why am I talking like that? Trixie frowned. "Seriously? I certainly hope you intend on retrieving my effects," she exclaimed. "Otherwise, I'll put in a thorough complaint with your department." "I'm just Rarity all the time," Valiant shrugged. Technically, ma'am, I am the department. About the only law pony left around these parts who hasn't been run out of town or..." Valiant glanced at a nearby shovel and did not finish his statement. He instead changed the subject. "So what did you do to work up those Diamond Dogs? Granted, they don't need much provocation, but I am mighty curious to know why Roxy seemed to have a personal vendetta out for you." Trixie glanced at Ellie before answering. "A certain Pegasus wrote a blatant lie that I'd be coming here to take on all comers, and those 3 mutts took it seriously." Valiant blinked in surprise. "For the love of Luna's left hoof, Ellie, did you go around spreading that wild tale of the vigilante magician coming into town?" Valiant asked. He saw the Pegasus look away sheepishly. Valiant let out a sigh. "Well, then, I reckon that this makes you the great and powerful Trixie everyone's been talking about." "Yes, the one and only," Trixie confirmed. "But the trouble is getting folks to shut up after that." "Valiant, Trixie could help us fight the Diamond Dogs," Ellie stated with newfound hope. Spike. Ellie is just Spike all the time. "No," Valiant said sternly to the Pegasus. "No way and no how, Ellie. Ellie, we're going to have a talk later about your wild ideas." The Valiant turned to the blue unicorn. "Well, Miss Trixie, I apologize about this mess. If you'll give me a day or two, I'll see about acquiring you a train ticket back home. Until then, you best keep out of Roxy's sight if you know what's good for you." Trixie glanced over at the stallion before speaking. "Well, I will certainly comply with that advice, but I don't know where I'll be sleeping tonight since my bag had my coin purse." "You could crash at my place," Ellie interrupted. "We have an extra room, and I'm sure Mom won't mind." "Haven't you done enough for me?" Trixie asked angrily. Valiant sighed. "Well, it might not be a bad idea, miss, unless you'd like to panhandle for change. I'd wager Ellie's place is a safer place than staying at the inn anyway. Those Diamond Dogs tend to frequent the inn for crash space at night when they're not drinking and causing trouble for the locals." Trixie frowned at Valiant, but conceded to her fate. "Fine, but come tomorrow I am leaving this imprudent little town." Trixie dusted herself off, and took note of several large tears in her cape. She let out a snort as she walked over to Ellie. "Lead the way, Hayseed."